going to take 3 cups of semi-sweet chocolate chips, pour them into a bowl. We're going to step on over to the stove, and we're going to heat 2 cups of heavy cream just until it starts to bubble around the edges. You don't want to overboil or overheat. So you see the steam coming off of it. It's getting really close, and you'll see bubbles start to form all along the outer edge. You don't want to scald the cream because then it ruins the flavor of the ganache. You just want it to be warm enough that when you pour it over the chocolate, it'll melt it. Just a minute or so more. And there it is. See those bubbles? We're done. Turn the flame off. We walk right over here. Pour that cream right over the chocolate, and then you got to cover it up so it keeps the heat in while it melts. And you let it sit for about 10 minutes, and then we're going to come back and whisk it together to combine the cream with the chocolate. We're going to uncover the chocolate chips and the heavy cream and just stir, making sure to truly incorporate. I jumped the gun and the cream is not ready. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a double boiler. We're going to take a pan of water and put it on the stove and heat it up and put this on top so we can slowly heat the cream and chocolate chips, melting them together and stir them together. There's just a tiny bit of water in the bottom of the pan so that it doesn't, we're not trying to boil or cook the bottom. We are just trying to let the steam from this water heat the bottom of this pan. And we're going to stir constantly until we get those chocolate chips melted. What we're trying to do is get a smooth consistency and get all of the chocolate to melt and then to combine completely with the cream. If you look, it's turned a much darker shade of brown than it was when we started. That's a sign that the chocolate is melted. And when you pull the spatula out and there's no chocolate chips, and the whisk out, and there's no chocolate chips and no chunks, then you're done. I'm going to turn it off. And we're going to let this cool. Since it was just on the stove and it got really hot, we're going to let it cool for a little bit, and then we're going to stick it in the refrigerator. And it'll stay in the refrigerator until tomorrow, when it should be thick enough that we can pipe it and ice our cake. Now we're going to fill them. The first thing we have to do is we're going to take some of this ganache that is nice and thick because it sat in the refrigerator overnight, and we are going to smear it onto our cake board. This is so that the cake sticks to it once it comes out and it doesn't move. Otherwise, it'll shift all around the board, especially during travel. Next thing we do, I use a knife just to cut around the edges of my pan to make sure that the cake comes out. Most people, bakers, will take this particular layer and cut it in half and make that a 2-layer cake. I like cake more than that. So what I do is leave it in this size, and I just fill from here and I bake 2 cakes that are the same size. Okay, so the next step is to fill a piping bag I use this giant nozzle. What we have to do is build a wall with the ganache. If I were making a cake that had the same outer frosting as the middle filling, I would not need to do this. But because I have two different types of filling, that's going to be salted caramel, and then the outside that's going to be ganache, I have to build a wall. Otherwise, the caramel seeps out into the rest of the cake and really ruins your icing. This is going to hold. I'm just telling you that now. Okay, so what we're going to do is pipe along the outer edge of the cake. And then do it one more time. There we go. And then we're going to put this in the refrigerator and let it cool for about 25 to 30 minutes. And then we'll put the filling in.